So this is a video of an American guy. Not sure where he is in America. Someone just sent it to me to have a look at. I've seen a number of these videos. They're really quite interesting. They're just ordinary guys just saying how something's not right. They don't feel right. Things have changed, something fundamental. Anyway, I'm just going to, I had a quick skip through this. So I got the basic idea. I'm going to go through it slowly now and comment on it until I think I made my points.
People have changed. I don't know any other way to put it except for people have changed. I've seen it. I know you've seen it. Let me know down in the comments below if you've just seen a shift in the way people are in general, the way society is in general. I'm really starting to believe that this timeline that we're on, there's something wrong with it. I mean, I've gotten to where I don't believe anything because everything is so screwed up. Everything is so up in the air. And everything is always changing. But over the last 5 years specifically, we have seen changes in society, in the world, that are unprecedented, unlike anything we've ever seen in such short periods of time, too. That's the other thing. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in an alternate reality. I don't know what happened to the reality we used to live in, but it is not here anymore. And there's a few things that have really made me realize this. So the first thing, and this is the one that actually started this whole path of my mind going down these rabbit holes into thinking that something's seriously off. So I grew up in Kentucky. I was born and raised here. And if you know anything about Kentucky, you'll know that the Kentucky Derby is held here. And it's a huge event. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the entire country. I would say probably one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Horse racing is a huge deal here in Kentucky. And even though I'm born and raised in Kentucky, I had never been to the Kentucky Derby up until a couple years ago. It's something I always wanted to do, especially back in my younger days when I used to drink and stuff, because if you know anything about the Derby, and specifically the Derby infield, you'll know that it's always been considered one of the wildest parties in the nation. And for good reason, because a lot of crazy stuff goes on there. They call it the Mardi Gras of horse racing because people run around half naked. They dress up in these crazy outfits, mud fights, porta potty races. Everybody gets completely trashed. And it's essentially just a massive wild party of thousands and thousands of people. And while back in my younger days, that was something that would have appealed to me. I always wanted to experience that. And even after I stopped drinking, I was like,
Yeah, this was where I got to before with this video. Was like, I'm not quite sure what this guy's talking about here, because isn't horse racing meant to be kind of a like classy thing where people dress up like Ascot and whatever? Isn't the Kentucky Derby the American version of Ascot? Or I must be missing something. But anyway, I'll carry on.
What? I want to go see this because sometimes I just want to watch the chaos unfold around me. So back in 2022, I went. And I went for that specific reason, to watch the chaos unfold around me. I wanted to see the massive party. And I walked into that event thinking that that's exactly what I was going to see, only to be extremely let down. And to say things had changed would be a massive understatement. I walked in there and there was nobody getting drunk. I mean, there were people drinking, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a massive party. People were in suits and ties. Women were in derby dresses. Everybody.
Isn't that what racing's meant to be? Like classy. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. This is pretty funny, this part.
It was just kind of standing around, somewhat socializing, somewhat just kind of sitting around, scrolling their phones, not really interacting in the way that you would think people would interact, especially for the Derby infield. And do me a favor, if you don't believe me on this, if you think, okay, well, you just never been there, maybe you didn't know what to expect.
Okay, so he's pretty much saying the same thing for up until here in the video, that things have changed. People aren't behaving the same way. They're not socializing the same way. He seems to be saying they're not getting drunk and partying the same way, which I would argue is a good thing. One of the things that definitely is happening is I've personally seen a lot of young guys and older guys alike giving up alcohol. I think that's because the mainstream narrative about promoting drinking is has collapsed to some degree. Certainly, alcohol is like my personal opinion, and I'm English, so I know how to drink, and I've drunk a lot in the past, and I've stopped pretty much now because I realise this is a very nasty drug, and it's very bad for you. There's all sorts of issues with it. I do still enjoy to have, one glass of wine at the weekend or something like that. But I've noticed a lot of people giving up drinking, and I think it's just because the mainstream media industrial complex, or whatever you want to call it, has always pushed it being okay to drink, and actually alcohol is a very nasty drug. And now that reality has come out. And I think there's another thing going on here, that people are just meeting people online, so they don't need to go to these big social events. Like all the decent contacts I made over the last sort of 5 or 10 years have been people I met online, and that's because I can find people that are like-minded and interested in very similar things, and I can go directly to them. I mean, if I want to find people who can think for themselves and understand that, I don't know, let's say fiat money is a vast scam of global proportions, that's an absolute crime of counterfeiting money, for example, I can go online and find other people who know that and think like that and realize what the truth is about fiat money, and I can hang out with them and meet them and discuss how to fix things like that. Whereas if I go to a horse race, what's the odds of me finding someone like that? So I don't think there's more to it than that. I think this guy seems to like to do a bit of wild partying, and he's a bit upset that he can't do it anymore. He seems like a decent, nice fellow though, doesn't he? So let's see what else he's got to say.
At all, and it was beautiful weather outside. So that was the first thing. The second thing was that nobody was interacting or socializing or doing any of the things that we used to do back a decade prior to that. The timeline, again, completely shifted. It's like I was removed from that timeline and thrown into this completely different timeline that I simply don't even recognize. And just like the Derby, the entire experience, because that is what I was actually used to, was being able to socialize with people and have hordes of people around me and just have a great time. It took me out of the experience. It made me pretty freaking uncomfortable, actually, because everything about it felt very robotic. It did not feel natural. There is something that has changed with people within just a decade's time, where people just aren't the same. They're not acting the same. People don't socialize. They don't interact the same way they used to. And it's very, very strange. It's a very strange phenomenon, and it's pretty off-putting, actually, especially for someone like me who considers myself an old soul. I've always said that I was born a century too late, because the new way of doing things, all this new way of interacting and being robotic and all this weird stuff, it just simply doesn't align with me. And I've noticed this in other places too. And again, let me know in the comments below if you've seen this.
Yeah, so I think, but basically people are feeling this because people are just interacting online, like the same thing I just said. You're going to go the path of least resistance. So if you want to find people who are like-minded, I mean, like if you go to a horse race, for example, you're going to watch the horses, but if you've got your smartphone with you, you're probably going to talk to your mates on that, aren't you? And send them pictures of the horse race, right? So rather than talk to some random stranger you come across. So is that wrong? Well, I'm not sure it is. I mean, I think it's just different. But anyway, let's see what else he's got to say. He sounds like he's grown up and he's not an 18-year-old anymore, and he's a bit upset he's not getting as much attention as he was before. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair.
But social gatherings specifically, events, grocery store, supermarket, anywhere out in public, I've noticed this change. The way people are, just the way people are. And I think about like the Mandela effect, and I wonder, like, am I imagining all this? Like, am I imagining a different way of doing things? And maybe I've just been thrown into this new time.
There is one thing, obviously, that I didn't think of that is a very obvious one, is the fact that people's freedoms have been threatened so much with the whole lockdown thing. You know, that's enough to spook anyone, just like randomly take people's fundamental rights away. Of course, they're going to be spooked by that. And people haven't forgotten it either. And you know, in Western countries, you've got to be, depending on which country you're talking about, you've got to be very careful about what you're saying now. You can get arrested for telling the truth, basically. And that's in a Western country, so that will have an absolute chilling effect on people.
I'm lying. Nobody told me things changed, but I specifically remember everything being drastically different than what it is today. If you go out in public, and again, especially social gatherings, bars, clubs, stuff like that. I was just reading an article the other day about how hundreds and thousands of bars across the nation are closing because nobody is going out and doing that kind of stuff anymore. And you have to wonder.
Yeah, so why would you go to a bar to try and meet people completely randomly when you can look for your nice trad wife, girlfriend on any part of the planet? Why would you do that? Like, you want to find like if you're a guy, right, you want to find a nice girl, you're not going to go to the local races, are you? You're going to get online and start checking out other countries and speaking to people online, because you could speak to 10 girls online in the course of a day, whereas you burn a whole day and a lot of money going to the races to maybe get lucky and meet someone who's probably not appropriate anyway. I mean, like, how's that even whatever.
What's the reason behind that? Is it just the fact that people aren't going out in public? Have people grown out of that? Where have all the people gone, and why aren't they interacting in those types of environments? Why aren't they interacting in general? What has changed? And you wonder if this is a good or a bad thing, because if people aren't going out and they're not partying and drinking and stuff like that, is that necessarily a bad thing? I guess it depends on the way you look at it. In my opinion, I think it's a bad thing, because when you don't socialize.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a bad thing that people aren't going out and getting drunk. I think people need to not be going out and getting drunk and take the world a little bit seriously at the moment, because things are a little bit spooky. I mean, what this guy is going on here, he's sensing something that's very wrong, and he's trying to figure out what it is. And he's absolutely right, because there are some things that are very wrong. But it's not lack of people going out and getting drunk and partying at the races.
And you're not interacting with one another, then you're missing out on shared knowledge, shared experience. And without that, we as a nation, as a society.
Okay, here he's making actually a interesting point, which he's correct about. I'm not sure he understands why, but I can tell you what's going on here. When humans interact with each other normally, face to face, they have to deal with a face to face interaction, which means you need to be confident in your human face to face communication skills. And if you spend all your time chatting on your smartphone and not actually physically face to face with people, your brain is fulfilling its needs on your phone when you're talking to someone on your phone, but you're not dealing with the real physical world, right? Which is a very different thing. And this is a real problem, because it's a simple way to explain it. It's stopping kids from growing up. That's why you have all these young men who are not growing up. I believe it's one of the reasons, and not the only reason. Like everything, there's multiple factors to all this, but the reason why you've got all these young guys that don't appear to actually behave like grown-ups is because they are not having to deal with real world interactions with real world situations. Because it's too easy, if you've got that solved, like most of your emotional and social needs solved online, and you're not going that last step of actually interacting in the physical world, why would you bother? So that is a real problem and actually needs solutions. And hopefully me making videos and trying to point this out to people, you guys maybe want to get out a bit more. If you're a young guy watching this and I'm talking about you, you maybe want to get out and deal with the real world a bit more.
In general, will eventually collapse, because when you don't have shared knowledge and you don't have shared experience and you're not sharing your story and interacting with one another, then things will eventually become stagnant. You see.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about here. I mean, you literally can have a smartphone in your hand, and now with the likes of ChatGPT and these other tools, you've got access to all the world's knowledge immediately at the press of a button, or now when you talk to GPT. So I don't quite know what he's talking about here. There's never been more knowledge available. I think, actually, it comes. This is what we're trying to do. This is what this project is about. We're trying to help you figure out what's important. Signal, not noise, as they say.
To grow. There is no more progression because you're not passing on the things that you've learned. Because shared knowledge and shared experience is a fundamental aspect of what makes us human. It's what sets us apart from the beasts in the wild. Throughout all of history, it has been a fundamental aspect of us getting to the point to where we are today. So if we stop interacting with one...
Yeah, so you see, we've never lived in a world where it was easier to share knowledge, and there's these amazing tools. What's really going on here is, like most humans, this guy lives his life based on a narrative, based on a story. He sees the world, like most people do, as this story that he believes is a certain way. And when his personal experience doesn't fit that narrative and doesn't fit it on multiple fronts simultaneously, he's starting to question his reality. That's what's going on. I think that's what's going on with most of these people, because they can't figure out why the world doesn't fit the narrative that they believe in, and that's really what's going on here. It's something has puzzled me a lot as to why I don't feel like that, and I think it's because I never really fitted in. I never really fitted in at all. So my world has always been much more based on my experience and just doing what I felt was right, because I didn't really trust anybody's opinion about anything, and always kind of stubbornly wanted to go my own way, for better or worse, because that definitely wasn't the right approach, because it's actually very useful to listen to what other people say. But it's knowing what is good information and not. So I went completely the opposite way, which I guess is why I managed to deal with this stuff better. But yeah, let's continue.
One another, and we stop sharing this knowledge and we stop socializing, then society in general will eventually collapse. It will cease to exist, or at the very least, we won't progress. We will become stale and we will become stagnant, and that is going to cause us to regress. It's going to cause the de-evolution of our species, and that is essentially what I believe is happening. But what exactly is happening? What is the reason that this timeline has shifted so much and people are so robotic and they've changed in such drastic ways? Number one, I think 2020 has something to do with that. I'm not going to say the name of the event that happened around 2020. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to mention it because platforms have been banned for less. All right, so I got to mind my P's and Q's. But something about 2020 and that event has caused a shift in people. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's the fact that people have just given up on each other, because back then people were so willing to turn in their neighbor for not complying, not doing what they were told. That event has also caused people to lose a lot of trust in other people and society in general. It's also caused people to get comfortable just staying home. You know, because back then we had to lock down, we had to stay home, be in our homes, not go out in public, not socialize, not be around other people. And maybe some people have just adapted to that. I don't know exactly what the reason is, but there is something about that event in particular that has caused a drastic shift. But that's not the only thing. I think there are other factors. Social media, the internet, cell phones, all these things, technology in general, I think has also caused this, because instead of going out and interacting, we now have all these friends on our phone, these fake friends on our phone that we can...
Yeah, you see, here it goes. So fake friends on his phone, whereas I've actually... The best contacts I've made in the last 10 years by far have all been people I've met online that I've connected with. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to leave this at this point because it's a long old video and he's kind of making the same points over and over. I mean, but it's very interesting that so many people feel something is badly wrong, but they can't quite articulate it. Yeah, very interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching if you got this far in the video, and please like, subscribe and do all that sort of stuff. I was just chuckling about this video because he has all these animals wandering around in the background, and because of the way he's cut the video up to edit it, which is a nice quality video. All these animals kept on coming in and out of view. Anyway, there you go. Come back soon and watch some more videos. Cheers. Bye for now.